Our next speaker is Vic Hao Jr., who's the president of the Theosophical Society in the Philippines. He's also the president of the Golden Link College, an educational institution that goes all the way up to tertiary level. And it was established by the TOS, and it has around 500 students at the moment. Vic has also written several books, including these titles: The Process of Self-Transformation, On Education, and Why Meditate. Vic also edited the chronological edition of the Mahatma Letters to AP Synod. He has conducted a self-transformation seminar in various countries around the world. Vicente.
Good afternoon to all of you. This afternoon, I'd like to share with you some thoughts about the road to awakening awareness, but from a somewhat different perspective, not only from the Theosophical order of service, but also from the point of view of the Theosophical Society. People are mostly molded by their surroundings, the home, school, society, the media. By the time a young person reaches 20 years old, the mind has been shaped and conditioned. Whether that young person will become receptive to ideas and insights of the ageless wisdom will depend greatly upon the nature of these conditionings. For example, I find that many people find it extremely difficult to conceive of a God that is not anthropomorphic. They find it a strange notion that a God does not listen to prayers, does not reward or punish, does not get disappointed with our weaknesses or elated with our goodness. By the time a young person reaches 20 years old, his fears and superstitions have been formed, and it can be very difficult for this young person to unlearn those things. It is very difficult for this young person to unlearn those things because they have already sunk into his subconscious. In such kinds of minds, the seeds of the ageless wisdom will not sprout easily. They have fallen on hard soil. One of the greatest obstacles to the growth of the seeds of wisdom, then, is the nature of the soil. This means society, the nature of society. Where the common culture is permeated with superstition or wrong belief, then the seeds of truth will not find a warm and soft soil there. The task of a good farmer is to first prepare the soil before he plants the seedlings. He waters it, plows it. It must not be too soft like mud. It mustn't be too hard like rock. The Theosophical Society has seeds to plant, but we must find out first if the soil is ready. If it is not, then we, the Theosophical Society, must help in preparing the soil. This is a part of our work, to prepare the social environment, the culture, public opinion, and the prevailing thought currents of society so that they'll be congruent with the ageless wisdom. It means influencing popular notions about parenting, about brotherhood and unity, about educational philosophies and methods. It means being amongst the major providers of information to the media in whatever form. It means helping to create an atmosphere of unity, of brotherhood, of compassion, of tolerance, of openness, of the intermingling of races and creeds. Madame Blavatsky, in her Key to Theosophy, wrote this: "True evolution teaches us that by altering the surroundings of the organism, we can alter and improve the organism. And in the strictest sense, this is true with regard to man." I believe it is now time for the Theosophical Society to participate more actively in the molding of popular culture, social values, and public opinion. We must not just be an esoteric group. We must enter the mainstream and be involved in the plowing of the soil of society so that it will be more receptive to the seeds of the ageless wisdom. Thus, for example, we must be involved in publishing magazines for the general public, not just for our members. Through these, we must plow the soil of public opinion and belief, expose them to fresh ideas, bring the deeper truths to the surface. The function of such an activity is not only to disseminate the ageless wisdom, but also to create a culture of intellectual freedom and inquiry. For it is upon such a soil that the ageless wisdom will sprout. The ageless wisdom cannot germinate in soils of fear, of superstition, of oppression, or tyranny. We must be more involved in public and private education. For more than 10 years in the life of a young person, the habits, the attitudes, and the minds of these young people are in the hands of teachers and educators. In those 10 years, the foundations of the wise life are either built or destroyed. The school, therefore, is the most powerful institution in the molding of the future life of every individual, for good or for ill. We, the Theosophical Society, I believe, must be involved in education, not just putting up our own schools, but in influencing the educational philosophies and methods of public and private schools. Then we must also be involved in media, that formidable force that molds the collective mind, whether through radio, television, newspaper, or internet. We may guess that 99% of what young and adult minds absorb from what they see or hear or read from the media do not really contribute to true wisdom in living. On the contrary, they push us to buy things that we don't need. They manipulate our desires to like things that may be harmful to us. So perhaps we should ask ourselves, do we have enough theosophical radio stations or programs in the world to reach the 5 billion people in the world who are above 10 years old? How much of our theosophical literature is there to even reach 1% of these people, or 50 million people? Another area of work for us, I believe that we must be involved in establishing youth centers everywhere with books, activities, camps, sports, projects, and service work that will influence the fundamental direction, habits, values, and attitudes of the 1.9 billion young people from ages 10 to 25 years old, growing up somewhere around the world. We should be actively involved in molding them. Dr. Annie Besant was probably the epitome of the involved theosophist. She dedicated her life to making theosophy part of mainstream society, not just standing at the edge of the human arena, but in the very center of action. She put up 2 newspapers in India, established many schools, wrote many books, spoke to audiences all over the world, established countless leagues and societies. She entered into the thick of Indian politics and helped shape the destiny of that nation. She established the Theosophical Order of Service to let theosophists become involved in helping change the social and cultural environment. Can we intensify our efforts over the next century to make theosophy part of mainstream of society, not just in one country, but all over the world. If we don't do this, then we will always be on the sidelines and not actively taking part in the arena that matters most, the arena of influencing minds and cultures of the young and the old as they go about their daily lives. 99% of the people in the world will never come to attend a theosophical meeting or lecture in our own halls. We must go out to reach them through the schools, through the media, through institutions, through books, through pamphlets, through movements, or through centers. We are, of course, today doing this in part already, and as best we can. Now probably is the time to redouble our efforts. In bringing Theosophy to the mainstream, there are three elements I believe that we must keep in mind. The first one is that we must choose 2 or 3 key ideas or concepts that we would like the Theosophical Society to be associated with. In our work of dissemination, we must keep in mind the principle that the wider the audience, the simpler must be the message. Theosophy is just one of the thousands of groups, religions, companies, advocates, famous people, politicians, and writers. It is impossible for a person to have complex knowledge of even the main ones. Thus, there is no choice except to know each group by just 1, 2, or 3 associated ideas, not 10, not even 5. For example, when we hear of Zen, what do we associate it with? It is with meditation, not with the Diamond Sutra, or with Huineng, or with the koans. When we hear of the Dalai Lama, what comes to mind? It is Tibet and compassion. When we think of the Taliban, what comes to mind? Not their advocacy or their reasons, but terrorism. We can think of 1,001 names and movements and groups, and we will notice that you and I have associated each of them with 1 or 2 dominant ideas. It is upon this idea or these ideas that people will like or dislike them, support or oppose them, seek to know more, or simply set them aside. If Theosophy is to go mainstream, we must deliberately decide on what 2 or 3 ideas that we would like to be associated with in the mind of the public. Is it paranormal phenomena? Is it clairvoyance? Is it the astral body and other bodies? Or is it universal brotherhood, spirituality, or peace, unity? We must choose, or else society and popular prejudice will choose this for us. The second element is that we must institutionalize whatever we are doing, our work. Whatever we do, we must make it become part of the fabric of day-to-day social and cultural life. It must not be a once-a-week thing or a once-every-quarter thing. It must become an enduring component of public life, public opinion, social behavior. This is the institutionalization process. To institutionalize means to make something part of social practice and values. A newspaper or magazine is an institution. A school is an institution. A social value is an institution. It takes decades to institutionalize anything. The sooner that we start it, the sooner will it stabilize to become part of the fabric of society. The third element is the need for enough qualified advocates within the Theosophical Society who will go out to the world to help bring the ageless wisdom into the mainstream of society. There must be a sufficient number of theosophists whom the public can see and hear and feel, who demonstrate the embodiment of the ideas and ideals that we espouse. If we don't have them, then I think we better not go mainstream. Because what we will reap may be notoriety or unpopularity, like having the reputation that theosophists are those who can do astral traveling, have knowledge of Atlantis and Lemuria, or are detached intellectuals. This element of internal preparation is important. It may take years to prepare theosophists who will speak on behalf of the society and who correctly represent the highest work and ideals of the Theosophical Society. I sent a draft of this talk to Diana, and Diana asked and really insisted that I mention something about the work that we're trying to do in these directions in the Philippines. So I'll try to do it briefly. In the first area, that of identifying one or two ideas to be associated with, we have not arrived at a consensus yet. But some of the themes upon which we put emphasis on is unity, self-transformation, and wholesome education, character building. For many years, we've been publishing newsletters, magazines for the public like Peace Ideas and Theosophical Digest. We've been conducting peace education and self-transformation seminars in schools, for religious groups, for the military, for the government, and for the general public. In the second area, that of institutionalizing our work, the TS in the Philippines has been publishing the Theosophical Digest for more than 20 years. In the eyes of the public, Theosophy has been identified with the kinds of topics found in this magazine: peace, brotherhood, self-transformation in particular. Another example of institutionalizing our work is in the area of education. As in the case of the TS and TOS in India, the TS in the Philippines has established several schools, 5 schools in fact. One of them, as Diana mentioned, Golden Link College, with about 530 students, offers tertiary courses from kindergarten up to tertiary levels, or 4-year bachelor's degrees in 5 disciplines, where theosophy, comparative religion, self-transformation, character building, and related subjects are part of the regular curriculum. Another example of institutionalizing our work is in the area of self-transformation. The TS has been conducting a self-transformation seminar for numerous schools, colleges, and universities, organizations, government agencies, and the public for more than 15 years. Such groups request for it because they have heard about it from others who have gone through it. The final element suggested above for taking theosophy into the mainstream was the preparation of members to act not just as speakers and facilitators, but as embodiments of the wisdom tradition that we espouse. We have trained several groups who are presently conducting lectures and seminars for the public, but we feel that the number is still very inadequate. Regular courses are given every year at various levels, such as introductory theosophy, intermediate theosophy, meditation, Mahatma letters, speakers training, facilitators training, correspondence course through the internet. Above all, we work with our members on self-transformation in a practical, in-depth way. This, of course, is a long-term work. These, then, are the 3 elements if we work towards making theosophy part of mainstream. First is to identify 2 or 3 key ideas that we prefer to be associated with. Second, to institutionalize the work that we do to make them enduring practices in society. And third, to prepare a large core of qualified theosophists who will represent us in the outer society. We hope that we can learn from the other theosophical sections on how to better pursue these directions based on their own decades of experience. For such a vision, it is essential that we work together closely and not allow physical distances to prevent our work from being more effective and efficient. It is a difficult work that cannot be done just by any single section, but it is a work that is achievable once we hold hands and do it together. Through these avenues of service towards peace, unity, and self-transformation, we may help lay the foundations towards the awakening of spiritual awareness.